I open the room for everybody. Yeah, welcome everybody. So many participants. I'm glad to have you with us for our second discussion, the second panel. It's part of a project, A Crisis and its Effects. Let's reflect, learn, and improve. It's a project by the Alps-Adriatic-Alliance in the context of a current corona crisis. And today's topic is about the impact of a crisis for artists, institutions, and the employees in the wide field of culture workers in the AAA area. Yeah, I welcome you all. Yeah, about 1 year ago, the COVID-19 crisis changed quite a lot, and we've learned how to cope maybe with the new situations, but really many challenges. And today we are going to focus on arts and culture. And yeah, words of welcome will be from Robert Vogrin, Thomas Stefan Berger, and Thomas Pseiner. We are going to start now with words of welcome by Robert Vogrin. Please introduce yourself. You are going to represent Mr. Čačić.
Yes, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear members of the Alliance, dear panelists and participants, it's my pleasure to greet you on behalf of the chair of the Alps-Adriatic-Alliance, Mr. Radomir Čačić, in this virtual event. Unfortunately, due to some unexpected obligations today, he's not able to join this meeting, so I have the honor to do that on his behalf. He sends his best regards and wishes you a successful panel. Over the past year, we got used to communicate with the help of digital tools, for which until the outburst of the pandemic, we had believed they belonged to some future generations, but it turned out that we all had to get used to them faster than we have expected. Today, there are help tool which enables people to communicate in this virtual reality, and we cannot think to work without them. I'm sure that each and every one of you has had different experiences and challenges with the pandemic, and that you're doing your best to overcome them in the best possible ways. The Alps-Adriatic-Alliance is a legal successor of the oldest interregional association, the Alps-Adriatic Working Community, for which many of you have probably heard. It was founded in the dark period when Europe was divided, not only ideologically, but even physically with the Iron Curtain. Despite these circumstances, the founding fathers recognized the need to connect people living so close each to another, and in some cases, speaking the same or similar languages, having similar customs, and sharing the Central European cultural identity. This definitely helped integration in this future integration process of all the included countries to the European Union by spreading the European idea among regions and citizens. The topic of today's panel is culture in times of the pandemic and in times of the present lockdown. Like all the other areas of human activity, it has suffered great losses and had to adapt to those new circumstances we are witnessing today. By playing with words, we can say that cultural and creative sectors have experienced a culture shock. Culture and art are an important part of human activities by enriching our lives in ways which cannot be measured or described in words. Culture is the lifeblood of a vibrant society, expressed in many ways, but in addition to its intrinsic value, culture provides also important social and economic benefits. According to the OECD study from September 2020, cultural and creative sectors are, along with the tourism sector, among the most affected by the current crisis. The venue-based sectors, such as museums, performing art, live music, festivals, cinema, etc., are the hardest hit by social distancing measures. On the other hand, the study shows that some cultural and creative sectors, such as online content platforms, have profited from the increased demand for cultural content streaming during lockdown. However, it turns out that mostly the largest firms have benefited from its extra demands. The culture sector helps support the economy through direct and indirect job creation. It makes a significant contribution to other sectors such as tourism and community branding. But one of the main characteristics of art culture is creativity, which helped this sector struggle and to survive on the market, but also stay accessible to the intrinsic needs of each and every individual. This is why I'm glad that our partner from Styria, Thematic Coordination Point for Art and Culture, organized this interesting panel where we will have the opportunity to hear the experiences of individual artists, cultural institutions, but also take a look on this topic from another very interesting perspective, the European capital of culture, the city of Rijeka, which, as we can only imagine, had to adapt his whole concept to these new circumstances. Competent bodies and all the included stakeholders, we all must take good care of culture and art, which has many benefits for individuals and society as a whole. So thank you for joining today. Your contribution will be much appreciated. I wish you a successful and interesting panel, and I hope it will be useful for the future work. So thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Vogrin. Let's welcome Mr. Berger from the regional government of Styria, Department of Europe and International. How is it called, Mr. Berger, your department?
European and International Affairs.
Okay.
Well, so thanks David, dear Deputy Prefect, dear Secretary General, dear Thomas, dear participants. Thank you very much at the beginning, Mr. Deputy Prefect, for your introductory words. It's a special pleasure for me to welcome you here today as a representative of the Land Steiermark. Steiermark, on the one hand, tries to be an active player within the Alps-Adriatic-Alliance in general, but serves, on the other hand, also as a hub and service point for all creative artists within the Alliance, and soon also in the field of sports. So this conference today is part of an overall project which is particularly important. This conference shows how well we are networked among ourselves despite the pandemic, which is not a simple task. It is something quite special, and I think we can be quite proud of that for good reasons. So I'm also happy about today's cultural panel, because we have an excellent mix with different sectors, different regions, but all from our common home base, the Alps-Adriatic region. And many of us have more than one local affiliation and work across the borders. And this is exactly what we emphasize. It's not about where we come from, it is more about where we are going to together despite this pandemic. So the cultural sector is one that has been particularly hard hit. And therefore I'm curious to know about your experiences over the last 15 months. So what impact the pandemic and the full stop have? What solutions have you found? And last but not least, what do you need so that we can cooperate across borders in the future again? So we as the Alps-Adriatic-Alliance see ourselves as a low threshold network that serves to jointly illuminate the special features of our region. This means our common characteristics, but also our differences. And this conference is another building block. And I thank everyone for participating. And I'm looking forward to the coming hours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Berger. Welcome, Mr. Pseiner.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Rödler. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, after the introductory words of Mr. Vugrin and Stefan Berger, there is not much to add, except to say a big thank you to Land Steiermark for organizing this definitely highly interesting event. It was just mentioned how hard the cultural sector was hit by the pandemic. And in our first CERLI panel on March 26, we could all see how much the educational sector in our area was affected by COVID-19. One of the main conclusions was that education in schools will never be the same after the pandemic. There will be digitalization has gotten young people very much further, has gotten the educational sector further, but there is still the digital divide that needs to be overcome. And I'm highly curious about hearing about the challenges in the fields of arts and culture today. And I wish us all very, very interesting and exciting hours to come. And again, I want to express my deep thank you and big thank you to Land Steiermark, especially to Sandra Kozovan, who runs the highly active thematic coordination point on art and culture, to Stefan Berger, and to Ferdinand Kreiner, Nicole Meister. You did a tremendous job in organizing this event today, and I'm looking forward for the final panel to come up on May 5th, when we will be dealing with civil protection in the Alps-Adriatic area. Well, thank you very much and enjoy the day.
Thank you, Mr. Pseiner. And now I think we are ready to start with our content part of the event. We are going to have two short presentations from Croatia, Jana Kovac and Darko Komšo. And after that, we are going to start with our panel discussion. Yeah, welcome, Jana Kovac.
Hello to everyone. As I understand, my microphone is very noisy, so I apologize because of that. I don't know how to fix this problem. So today I'm here representing Museum of Međimurje. We are located on the north of Croatia in a town called Čakovec. I am here in the name of my director, Maša Hustek-Soboćan. She's dealing with constructional works and everything very much not musical. So we are going to show now a PowerPoint presentation about our project. We will introduce you to the project, and after that we can discuss as I understand it. So let me just start to share my screen. Now it's very slow. Okay. Okay, it said that it failed. Just a second, I will try again. Okay.
That's fine.
Okay. So we are talking about our museum. We are a regional museum in Medjimurje. This is us. This is a complex of an old city in, we call it Old Town in Čakovec. We are located in the center of the Čakovec, and Čakovec is located in the center of the region Medjimurje. And today we are going to talk about this fortification part of our complex. So currently I am in the palace, and in the palace there is a permanent displays and our whole museum, and this fortification part is a new addendum to our museum and our displays. We are famous by the family Zrinski, or Zrinji, as it calls in Hungarian historiography. These are the two maybe most famous ones. They are called Nikola and Petar Zrinski, and they ruled in Medjimurje for about 150 years. This is our courtyard, atrium, a part of our permanent display in the central palace. We are presenting the whole history of Medjimurje. This is part of 19th century, also 18th to 19th century. Some are objects. I'm going right through this. We have 5 departments. This is ethno collection, art gallery. We are focusing on artists from our region. We have a completely new permanent display dedicated to family. This is their family tree. This is this part of new display. Some members. We have reconstructed some clothing from that time. So we are talking about 16th and 17th century. Some weapons from that time. And we are also communicating some intangible heritage. Storytelling is very important for us, and stories that are still present in Medjimurje. We have focused also on newer generations. We are providing some games for the younger ones. And now we can focus on our project that is co-financed by European Union, by the European Structural Fund. 85% we have gained the co-funding. So we have started from this. So this is the appearance of our fortification in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. And we have decided to rebuild it in one part and revitalized in whole area. We are talking about 3,000 square meters of new space. We are talking about project worth somewhere around 5 million euros, and most of that money goes for reconstruction and building details. So this is our construction site in 2018, and this is today. We have achieved much, and we are at the end of our project. Somewhere in July, if I'm not mistaken, we are going to open our museum. Deadlines are always very tricky, so let's say July. We are going to have a new new part of our museum. It is going to be called Treasury of Medjimurje. And we are going to have 2 permanent displays in it. In this central part, there is going to be a cafe with a very attractive terrace. And this part of building that you see on your right side is going to be a souvenir shop, educational and multifunctional room. We are hoping to gather a lot of new content here. So not just for museum displays, but also for involving the community in which we are working. And to conclude, we have thought about some ideas that we could mention and talk about it. We are talking about this complex of old city that is enlisted as cultural heritage in Croatia, and that's a big part of our identity here in region Međimurje. We can talk also about investing in cultural heritage because that's financing is always a problem. We are struggling with this term cultural tourism as a museum because we are not adapted to this touristic part, but we are learning and we are cooperating with our regional board, touristic board, and we are doing quite well, if I may say so. And also we spoke already about it, this virtual presence. We have to be virtual now present, and that was quite a problem for us because we don't have, for example, we don't have employees that can build a structure for us or something like that. So we have to outsource that part, and that was quite challenging. Also, the question of audience is very tricky because a lot of people are now saying to us, we did not know that you have this program. Now we do because we follow you on, I don't know, Facebook, Instagram or something like that. But also there is a part of our public, our audience that is not using anything about this digital world. Saying, oh, you're closed for us, we cannot cooperate with you, and that's quite a problem for us. So in this, I don't know how to speak about this post-crisis crisis period, because we thought that in 2021 we are not going to talk about corona pandemic, but we are still do. So I don't know how to address this. When is this post-crisis period will be? We really hope that this autumn will be more normal than last autumn, and we will have to deal with this as circumstances will allow us. So this is our presentation, and I will now stop sharing my screen. So as I now understand it, now you will go on.
Janja, maybe one or two short questions for Janja, if our audience would like to know a bit more. Okay, hopefully the interactive part will follow soon during the discussion. So we continue with Darko Komsho from Pula.
Can you see me?
Yes, and we can hear you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Darko Komsho. I am director of the Archaeological Museum of Istria in Pula. I'm also the president of Croatian Museum Council. So I could speak from the aspect of the a cultural person, a person who works in the cultural sector, also a person who very involved in touristical sector, and also I will in a couple of words describe where we are, what was the situation with our museum before the crisis, and also what's the impact of the crisis to the museum and the cultural sector in Istria, Pula, and also what we could achieve after the COVID. So I would share a couple of photos with you. As you probably know, I'm from Pula, Istria, which is part of Croatia. Istria is very famous all over the Europe, especially because of touristical reason. A lot of people from Europe came to Pula and to Istria to enjoy, especially during the summer months. Pula is the town of 60,000 people, the largest town in Istria. Istria is one of the head of the touristical places in whole of the Croatia, with more than 5 million visitors and more than 20 millions overnight stays, which also is very good for us who are doing the culture sector and also who are working with the monuments in Istria. So Archaeological Museum of Istria is built in 1902. We are one of the largest museum in Croatia, and also we are the largest museum by the number of the visitors and also by the income of the museums in Croatia. We have around 600,000 visitors every year, and we had, before the crisis in 2019, we had almost 3 million euros of income from sold tickets. Why we have that many visitors? We are in charge of the amphitheater in Pula, which is the place where we had a lot of concerts, manifestations, and also it's very important for touristical sector, for the visitors to come to Pula and enjoy the beauty of Istria. We also have a couple of galleries, and we are now doing a project of reconstructing of the museum, and so that's the largest project in the culture in Croatia in this period, worth more than 15 million euros. We are just about to finish that project. We are also starting a new project of reconstructing of small Roman theater, which you could see this on the left side. You could see the museum building before the reconstruction. On the right, you see small Roman theater. So we are building a place that could be combination, and we are joining these two things, museum and the small Roman theater. Small Roman theater is going to become an area for 2,000 visitors that could enjoy the concerts and so on. So before the COVID crisis, as I said, we were very happy with a lot of income from touristical sector. We had, as I said, more than 600,000 visitors. In 2020, we had deal with the problem. It was everything came to abrupt end, and we came with a very high drop, lowering of the number of the visitors. So we were we are still the most visited museum in Croatia, but decrease of the visitors are 70%. So we are not, last year we had 150,000 of the visitors. We also are doing a lot of this project, and COVID didn't stop that project, but it's slowed them down. So instead of finishing it as we planned the last year, we will finish part of the project this year, part of the projects next year. So definitely we had to in 2020 we had to adapt and adjust to the new circumstances. So we start to work partially from home, then we have to work in the shifts to deal with the visitors. We also have to reduce the number of the visitors in the closed parts of our galleries and so on. But we also respond by increase work on the public networks. So before the crisis, we had only one public network, the Facebook page. And now then we start, when we have not very often new posts, we start by posting 4 to 5 new posts a day on Facebook, but we also open a wide number of new public networks like Instagram, Twitter, YouTube page, and a couple of months ago we also, first one in Croatia, we opened TikTok page of museum, and from one part we have very high decrease of the physical visitors, but on the other hand we have a high number of increase of the virtual visitors. So now our museum last year had more than 200,000 visits by our posts, and the crisis is here, and it's going past. And what we decided, what we discovered by this crisis, that we need to make the way how we could fast adapt to the situation like this with the crisis. This crisis was unknown to us because epidemic is the enemy that you cannot see, and we have to adapt in a proper way. And what we understand that if we want to continue to be visible, we have to increase our work and dissemination of culture strategies and culture work by public networks and digital platforms. So this is shortly about our museum and how we deal with the COVID situation. If you want, I would gladly answer to a couple of questions.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Komscher. Yeah, questions, 1 or 2 questions would be fine now via voice or chat, as you like. Okay. No, so yeah, Alex Steger.
Yes, hello. I'd like to know if any of the 2 speakers, Mr. Komscher or Mrs. Kovac, if the companies or museums employed people for digital content. So it wasn't only a shifting of obligations, but new employments. Was there anything in this field that came up?
So may I answer first? So we didn't employ anyone new in our company. We shift, 2 persons that start to deal only with the digital platform. We use the same personnel we had in museum. For us, it was very blessed that we didn't have to let anyone go. So we are managed to keep our staff all together, because I know that cultural sector, especially in the West and in the Western Europe and in the US, had a lot of problem with keeping the personnel and the staff employed. So no, unfortunately, we couldn't had anyone new. But development of digital platform in the future will definitely we will definitely have to employ people, and also to outsource and work with the other company to combine and to have a larger impact on the public. So not yes.
Yeah, thank you. But what about Janja Kovac and?
We in Čakovec also did not employ anyone because we were already working, everyone was working on our public accounts. So all creators, we have 5 curators here at the museum, are actively involved in creating content for our public networks. So we are doing posts for Facebooks, graphics for Instagram. I know that's not very professional, but we cannot afford to have someone doing this for us. We outsource just the big events. This daily communication we are handling by ourselves. We were doing that before the crisis, and we are doing that still now. I really hope that with our new part of museum that's going to change, that we will have income of tickets and souvenirs and so on to be able to adapt to that. I have to admit that I'm quite jealous to Pula because of their numbers of visitors. We are talking about 7,000 visitors in Čakovec, so that's, well, the numbers say it all.
Thomas Psener, you raised hand.
Well, thank you very much for your enthusiastic presentations. What I wonder about is where do you see permanent changes in museum didactics after the pandemic? How will the pandemic, what will remain of the adaptations you have done so far? What will remain in the future when museums open again? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Please, a short answer, and after that we can continue with a panel discussion.
Well, you know, do you hear me?
Yes.
Well, you know how the people are. When we are in a problem, we are swearing that we'll change, definitely. and when the problem passes, then we are returning to our old self. I'm kidding. Definitely, we will have to maintain and to develop. We have to continue with development of digital platform, and I think that's one of the main changes that is dealing with all of us. Switching to digital platform was something that happening before, but not that rapidly as it happened during the last year. So I think that this will definitely remain. So I think that will be the main change. Everything else, I think we all hope to return to the old 2019 pre-COVID situation.
Janja?
In our case, in Čakovec, we are dealing mostly with students, elementary school, high school, and senior citizens. So we are really working with that because we cannot accept them physically. But as I understand, Croatia is still in good, well, how to say, we are not in lockdown like some countries in Europe are. So a lot of our audience can actually come to the museum. We are still open. And for example, we have this situation that we held some workshops. For example, last week we were producing lace. We were learning how to make lace. This is intangible heritage of our region, and I really do not know how to teach this via digital platform. So in this part, we are still doing something physically, but we have big success with virtual workshops, like some competition in sketching, in arts, or something like that. So this is a new thing that we started, and we are going to go on with that. We have a new colleague. It's something like that years now working with us. She's working in educational department, and that is something that we are going to go on with, because, for example, we are very our history is very interwoven with Hungary, and a lot of people from Hungary started to send us their works and apply to this competition. So that was really great for us.
Okay, Janja and Darko, thank you very much for giving us some insight in current situation. Yeah, before we start with our panel discussion, I would really like to know who is present, and I suggest that everybody could introduce him or herself by some keywords via the chat. So I would like to know, like I did just now, where are you located, and maybe 3 or 4 keywords describing you. Yeah, so for me it's Salzburg, Austria, as you can see in my background. I'm very interested in media, education, culture, and everything what is digital I like very much. Yeah, please let us know via the chat, and we will now highlight our panelists. It will take some seconds. Okay, who else is missing? I think we. Do I have everybody? No, not yet. Yeah, and the first question. I have to see. I think we have everybody. No, Irina. Is Irina present?
Yeah, she is.
Yes, she's here.
Sorry for that. Sorry for that. So many.
That's okay.
So many people around. Yeah, the first question to our panelists is about 1 year ago the crisis started, and I would like to know what was your first personal or maybe even artistic reaction, and please introduce yourself and try to answer the question. We start with Sarah.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for this initiative and this meeting today. It's already been very, very enriching. Yeah, David, thank you for the question. When this crisis started last year, it was I was talking to Sandra Kotrovan actually about this yesterday. A lot has happened since the beginning. In the very first instance, it was almost a personal relief for me and for us who usually travel 2,000 to 3,000 kilometers a month through the Alps-Adriatic region, and suddenly we were stuck in one place, or in a much more reduced circle, just between Styria and Istria. So it was refreshing in many ways, and there was an idea of going back to basics and really noticing how little we need to live well, and also a certain hope socially and socioculturally, because we could see in urban and rural spaces how people were more prepared than we might have expected to help each other and to show kind of community solidarity. People who had to isolate were delivered food or medicines or whatever. And we started talking about the new normal, and then we started talking about how this would be a paradigm shift for everything. We wouldn't fly so much anymore. We'd try and close the huge gap in the scissors between rich and poor. And I think that a lot of us have seen in the last few months that actually what's happening is slightly disillusioning in that sense. A lot of people have become much, much richer, and a lot of people who fall through the gaps have become much, much poorer. And it's a very precarious situation. And we as artists and cultural actors and activists certainly have an obligation to throw a light on that and to think about it. And through networks, as Stefan Berger said at the beginning, like the fact that we're all here today is really a sign of how very connected we are. And the question is what we can take out of this obligation as a cultural movement or a cultural community, and use to help to improve society, not just through our work, but also through dialogue and awareness.
Yeah. Have you already introduced yourself? I don't know.
Sorry, in the chat, yes, but my name's Sarah Money. Sorry.
Yeah.
Should I just say briefly who I am?
Yeah, just one sentence maybe.
Describe. Sure. I'm a musician and composer from London and Pakistan originally. I've lived in Austria for the last 20 years, and I, together with a team in South Styria and in Istria, I curate cultural European projects.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kinga.
Yes, hello everybody, good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation. First, then I should introduce myself, or is it enough what we can see on the computer, or?
Yeah, maybe one or two sentences. If it's
okay, so my name is Kinga Todd. I'm a freelancer artist, writer, or performer, and because of COVID, I can now say that I'm also a grand member of Hungary's first organization for equal female rights and female representation in the literature, which is actually the baby of the COVID. And I'm also a member of Hungary's biggest organization for literature. There was another one, which is actually, yeah, unfortunately, we don't have this organization anymore because of political reason. We lost this organization for young literature. So we have the organization for mature literature, at least. And I should be also the responsible one for literary programs in Forum Stadtpark in Austria, in Graz, which was probably my biggest personal loss, and yeah, existentially lost. It's also because of the COVID. So what happened during this COVID time? Yeah, there were a lot of wonderful things going on. What Zara also mentioned, that we had to face our roots or basics. Also, how we can manage and how not much we need to survive, and how important it is that we have connection and then we can work together. How these collaborative programs how important these collaborative programs are. There's another thing about the media or the online platforms, how effective they can be and how much we can do. Also, we can reach each other now on this platform, for example, and we are from different countries. But on the other hand, it was also a huge problem in my case with Forum Stadtpark, for example, that I could not be there. And there were a lot of programs or a lot of issues I was not able to cope with. When the pandemic started, I was in Zug in Switzerland. There's a writer residency program, and I literally stuck there. It was, of course, a wonderful time, and for me as an artist, and I could work a lot, but it did not help me to do the international programs. We were not prepared. I think I was also not prepared how to manage different issues and organizing things. And then after that, for my biggest surprise, I landed in Hungary because there was no choice for me to go anywhere. So at the moment, I'm enjoying this surreal, wonderful life in Hungary. Let's see how long. But as I told you, there were also wonderful things, just like this organization, and we can. I call these movements like digging. So really like digging. It's also in my personal work, how to work with nature, how to work with residues, waste materials, how to dig. And actually, we should do it also we should have done it or should do it as an organization, how to dig to the roots of the problems, how to dig and find the problems in, for example, in the literature, how to find solution for to be equal. Also when we talk about the honorars, when we talk about financial problems, when we talk about gender crises, and so on and so on, and how we can find the roots in European Union. Are we a European Union? Are we equal? Is it really true that all the lands are equal? All the lands are handling this COVID situation totally differently, and it's a huge gap. And this is, for example, a wonderful moment how we can find solution to cooperate and go over this. Sorry, I talked a bit too much. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kinga. Ida Ruckli.
Yeah, hello to everyone. I'm happy to be here, and thank you for the invitation. I am actually here instead of the artistic director of Stazione Topolò, Postaia Topolove, Moreno Miorelli, who sent me here, let's say. I'm calling from Topolove in Slovene, which is a small village on the border between Italy and Slovenia. We are part of the also of the Slovene minority here, and in this village, which has now 20 inhabitants, there is an international art festival going on for 27, 28 years, so my age also. I'm also and I collaborate with this festival, also in the programming and in the graphic design for the festival. And moreover, I'm also editor of a magazine called Ropida, and president also of the young association Ropida, which was born, let's say, in the embrace of Stazione Topolò, within Stazione Topolò, and we are a group of younger people, some of us living in Topolò, others not. We all studied, of course, around the world. And yeah, so this is for the introduction, let's say, for the presentation. What I was reflecting when you were talking now is that really living in a rural environment, of course, as everyone says, no, we felt less this presence of the pandemic. Also, for example, when and still now the masks are compulsory also outside. Of course, here within the village, we don't use them, and the masks are, of course, the first sign of that the pandemic is real and that we see it. So, but not only this, I think it's different from urban environments, but also I was reflecting on this fact that you were talking that now we are more connected also digitally, and because we cannot see each other, we cannot travel. And I was thinking that for those who live in rural areas, and especially in very small places where there are no people, of course, the need of connecting through internet or other ways with each other was always present, no? So also this, I think, was a bit of difference and from urban contexts. So in a way, we felt also this presence of the pandemic less. Of course, we cannot travel, and this is maybe for someone who lives in the countryside, but is stimulated, let's say, from the city. It's quite difficult. Yes, so this is, let's say, my opening opening reflection. And also, I have to say that the also relating to Stazione Topolò, the pandemic actually not that didn't change anything, but the impact was not so big as maybe it was in bigger urban festivals where the public is very big, where also the organization and the structure are kind of more strict in a way. So, but maybe we will discuss about this also later.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Vida. Aleš Steger.
Hello, everyone. Aleš Steger from Ljubljana. I'm very glad to see some of my dear friends here, Kinga. I'm an author and I work in publishing. I'm the program director of a publishing house, NGO publishing house, Beletrina from Ljubljana. And I co-direct somehow or co-manage a European platform of now already 30 international poetry festivals from around Europe. It's called Versopolis. So I'll try to say a few words, brief impressions from all these three aspects of let's say, my identity. I had to laugh when Kinga was talking about digging, because when I reflect back, February, March, when last year, when the pandemic reached Europe, and I saw that overnight a year fully booked became completely different, and all the readings and discussions and speeches were cancelled overnight, and no possibilities, no reasons to travel. As Zara mentioned, in a way, I felt it as a relief. I felt it as something like almost a gift that I could really do the thing I love most, probably just write, sit at home and write all these things that I always wanted to write but never had time to write. so it wasn't a bad. I mean, in its core, it wasn't a bad feeling. I think what I did, a part of writing was I went in the cellar and I cleaned the cellar. So this is perhaps a movement that is connected to your digging, Kinga. You know, you go down and you clean all the mess that you never do and you always avoid doing. And I mean, on this level, it was a very, very fruitful year for me. Not an easy year, but it was a very fruitful year. Also, being spending much more time with my family, and gave me really a year for myself, an intimate year. Professionally now, publishing is not easy if overnight all the bookshops get closed. We've been very lucky because since the first day, basically, people working in this publishing house, we saw it as an opportunity. So, and we really invested all our efforts in making things work differently and establishing basically new ways of production and of distribution then later of the books. Among other things, we are handling together with all public libraries in Slovenia a digital platform for ebooks. And this digital platform called Biblos, everyone in Slovenia, if he or she is a member of a public library, can lend ebooks for free. It was for a number of months the only way how people could borrow books basically from public libraries. So the platform, which was doing well, but still it wasn't easy to get it basically among people. It exploded basically, and it really made a huge impact, and now it's extremely present among I think people who read in Slovenia. On the other hand, we invested a lot in digital marketing and in a complete new way how to do digital events in the net. Tried to bridge the loss of all the events, book presentations, readings, discussions, roundtables, symposiums that we've been doing normally over the years, in inventing new ways how to do it for us, new ways how to do it in digital era, and it really paid off, and the sales of books, physical books, through digital channels rose. So in a way, we've been happy with what happened to the company, but I think in general we've been more or less an exception. Mostly, especially smaller publishers, suffer extremely from the situation, and only bigger, flexible, also institutions who have the possibility to invest in digital means, they got a profit from the situation. Big majority did not. Now, imagine us. We are now I come to the third part, Versopolis. We are a platform which basically supports in mostly younger poets in international traveling, being translated, being present at international festivals. So mobility is a keyword, and then overnight this mobility stops. And we really thought we have to do something. We have to show that the world is not over, in times of fear and panic, because that was very often the reaction we've got from people. We have to show somehow that other means of doing cultural events internationally are still possible. So we overnight, basically, a couple of people with almost no money, we started a project called Festival of Hope, and it was in March and April 2020, and it turned out to be a huge success. Almost 100 international associations, festivals, cultural centers basically cooperated from all parts of the world, and we had almost a million visitors in the net. And for us it was a huge surprise, basically, what a small hand of people just opening up and trying to do in a critical situation something positive can achieve. We repeated this festival last winter. It still was successful, but one could feel that we all grew extremely tired of the digital channels, that it was much harder to motivate people to do anything, much harder to motivate people to go and watch another Zoom or another recording. So I think, and it's obvious, I think we have to see it also realistically. We will never get back to what was before, and digitalization just happened, and we all are thinking how to either support or to extend our fields of action in the digital means. But we know exactly that most of what we are doing cannot be really replaced by recordings, digital recordings. A certain economic system that was attached to what we were doing prior to the pandemic, it cannot be established overnight in the digital world. And especially also the way we feed ourselves as creative beings from being in touch with each other, I mean, physically, and enjoying what we create in concert halls, in theaters, on stage. You don't get as someone who seeks for impulses and tries to create new ones. You don't get this over the net. So I think a new skepticism is also underway when it comes to the digital means as something that can save us in times like this. Sorry for being perhaps too long.
It was very interesting to hear your statement. Irena Kreger-Shegotta, I hope it pronounced it correctly.
Yeah. Good morning, dear hosts, dear participants. I'm really happy to be here with you. I'm happy to be participating in this panel. It's a small proof of how incredibly diverse and rich cultural and creative and artistic sector is, and how this ecosystem that we navigate in is diverse. We sometimes tend to forget that when we talk about our challenges, which are same and very different in the same time. I am a CEO, a director of Rijeka 2020 company, which was founded to prepare and implement the European Capital of Culture project in Croatia. Rijeka 2020, I have 25 plus years of experience in culture and arts and international relations. That's where my heart really is. I would like, first of all, to introduce a little bit our project. It's really necessary to give you a perspective of how we are dealing with the whole pandemic challenge. So Rijeka is the first Croatian European capital of culture. We were designated in 2016. We competed against 8 other Croatian cities, among which Dubrovnik, Pula, Zagreb, so the competition was very tough. But we won the title with an interesting narrative, where the main slogan was Port of Diversity, the narrative that turned around how diverse the city is and what it can offer in terms of diversity, but also how do we live this diversity nowadays, with a big question mark in Rijeka, in Croatia, in Europe. What are the questions we need to ask ourselves? It's a huge project, as you can imagine. So we started preparing in 2016 for the 2020 program. So it's been 5 years now. Financially, it's huge. Its budget is 20 million euros for the program and 40 million euros for the infrastructural project. So you can just imagine the scope of the expectations, of the ambitions. And after all the preparing, it was designed and imagined with more than 220 partners from 40 countries. Yes, and as I said, after all that ambition and preparations, investment in all means, financial, intellectual, creative, we were hit in the face by the pandemic in March 2020. Rijeka was lucky because we had a really wonderful opening of the year. With our opening spectacle was followed by more than 30,000 people, and we organized more than 70 events. And also the months of January, February, we had a chance to open a few important exhibitions. We had Wagner for the first time in Rijeka, a big neat company, a Belgian performing arts company festival in Rijeka, etc. But as I said, after that, everything came to a halt in March. It was a big shock for the project. It's really not easy to adapt overnight and to change something that you prepared for the last for the 4 years before that. You had one concept, you planned events, public events with several thousand people. You planned really experiences that would bring people, citizens, audiences together. You planned for a lot of international partners to join you in your city, to promote your city, to open its doors to visitors, cultural visitors, tourists, etc. So we stopped in March 2020, but after the initial shock, we decided to go on, and we decided that no matter how, we need to adapt to the situation. This is a unique opportunity for the city of Rijeka. I guess next Croatian city will be designated in, I don't know, maybe in 15, 20 years. Rijeka most probably will never again be European capital of culture. And we decided to go on with the project, not only because of the project, but also because of the cultural and creative scene, local culture and creative scene, who was also hardly hit. Figures say that besides avio companies around the world, that creative and cultural sector is the second most hit sector globally that suffered most consequences of the pandemic. And we felt that we owed it to our citizens. And it was a very good decision. Of course, we had to deal with a completely new circumstances, completely new framework for the project. New financial framework. Our budget was cut down by 40% for the 2020. New physical framework. All of a sudden, like the rest of us, we needed to apply social distancing measures. Big events were impossible. All kind of other physical new conditions. Borders were closed, so the whole global and European dimension was gone overnight. Yeah, we managed to downsize, to downscale, to reprogram, to adapt. And as a result of that, I'm happy to say that in 2020, since April 2020 till the end of the last year, we managed to implement and have more than 400 cultural projects of different kind in all the artistic disciplines. We managed to implement a lot of projects that engaged our citizens, our communities, that non-professional participants that we felt was really important in COVID time. We managed to engage our local cultural and artistic scene, managed to go on with our volunteering program. And I have a figure in front of my eyes. Totally, we had around 200,000 participants, some 250 physically, and 50,000 in digital through digital channels and on digital platforms. The project continues to go on. European Commission, together with the European Parliament, decided to prolong the title. So together with Galway in Ireland, we are European Capital of Culture till end of this month. So a few more days. April was planned as our closing month with more than 50 events, but unfortunately our county is one with the highest numbers of infected people in Europe now, unfortunately. So we are in a very severe lockdown. So we just opened 5 exhibitions and then closed them so that they are there in the museums, but people cannot physically visit them. And of course, we tried to make digital variants of our programs and yeah, try to adapt in every sense. Speaking of challenges and how we adapted, there are some key words that popped up in all of your interventions, all of your speeches and sharing with us. One of them is definitely digital disruption. That is not only our challenge anymore, it's our reality, and it really hit us in the face. And with it, we really need to deal, not just to deal with it, but to take it into consideration. And it comes with many questions. It's I think that we need to distinguish between reaching our audiences in terms that we are communicating about our programs. But the different thing is creating digital content, which is a completely different art that needs time, needs skills, needs money investment. And it's not something that you can really do overnight. When we talk about digital space, we are all faced with how fragmented it is, how so many niches there are, and how difficult it is to reach our audiences. For example, we filmed all our exhibitions and created digital guides for our audiences so they can, have some kind of experience about what we did. But you can really, it's very legitimate to ask ourselves, why would somebody go and check out an exhibition in Rijeka if you can at the same time check what's going on in Met in New York or in Serpentine Gallery and elsewhere. So there is this really fragmentation of the market. There is so much offer out there. There's a problem how to reach our audiences. So in the same time, there's a lot of learning for the professional sector to do about digital space and how we navigate in this digital space. And not only adaptation on our side as a producers, but also on the side of the audiences and those who consume, so to say, I don't like that word, but who, you know, we create some kind of a cultural product, and how do people react to that and how they consume this product. Even if we talk about physical space, so that's about digital space, we can talk about it for hours. But there is also physical space, how throughout our project, we were reflecting about physical space, how we can, of course, open spaces became good for cultural events, because you can create safer environment outside and inside for our audiences. So basically, any space in the city can become a creative space. We use a roof of a skyscraper, a parking lot of a shopping mall. Our last big concert, Mahler concert, was given in the sports centers because it offered more square meters than National Theatre, etc. So also our communication with the physical space and our audiences, that triangle is something that needs to be reflected upon. And finally, this new situation, how do we respond to it, taking when we reflect about inclusion? Somebody mentioned a digital divide in terms of technological differences between consumers. There's also generational differences that are really, you know, becoming more and more important. I mean, when I compare how I use digital space with my kids and what do they consume online and what do I think should be a digital product online, these are different universes, not just different planets. So this generational divide is becoming even bigger. So inclusion, engaging communities, you know, how do we engage communities in an active way? How our citizens become active participants, not just passive participants of our program? How do they really actively participate and co-create with us? The you know, famous buzzword audience development. What does it mean now in response to all these elements? So there's a lot of questions for us who produce programs, who produce from small events, from intimate events to big festivals, mega events like European Capital of Culture. There are a lot of questions for those who create cultural policies, and I think it's very important for them to it's very important to have a very constructive dialogue around cultural policies. And yeah, my final comment would be, I think Aleš spoke about creating of a symbolical meaning through this interaction, physical interaction, that is really important. And I can agree that digital cannot totally replace physical, and if it will, then it's going to be something completely new, but not a replacement, but completely new modus operandi, a complete paradigm shift. We need collective experience in order to create stories that we share, and these stories give meaning to our personal identities, our collective identities. So this sharing absolutely has to be there. I cannot imagine our lives as human beings without that sharing, either physical or digital. Personally, you know, in my age, I really have a difficult time imagining how that is happening digitally. But as I said, younger generations have found ways, and they have ways. But definitely, culture and arts do create this meaning and spaces for this sharing, for this dialogue. And we as producers, we need to protect those spaces and create opportunities for such collective and creation, co-creation, and sharing. Okay, I guess we have all just answered a lot of, not answered, but asked a lot of questions. We sent them out there into the universe. And as I said, this type of dialogues and sharing among colleagues, but also among wider audience, I think it's not just good. It's really necessary for all of us. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Irina. I think you mentioned very good keywords: constructive dialogue, participation, interaction, and therefore I would like to invite all participants, the audience participants, everybody in this virtual room, to add remarks or questions. You can raise hands like this, or you can use the raise hands function from Zoom, or you can use the chat. And I see Sarah raising her hand.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank everyone again, especially from the panel just now, for the, as Irina mentioned, incredible diversity of what we'll do. And as Kinga said, listening to Irina now, it really highlighted the differences in COVID reactions and possibilities between different countries, which is also fascinating. I'd like to briefly touch on the topic of digitization and then also say something about art and culture, because I find it absolutely logical that we spent a lot of today talking about digitization, but I also find it a bit sad because yes, we've learned a lot in this last year, and I've done a lot of projects like streaming concerts, live streams, duets. We've had online festivals. We're working on a kind of semi-virtual hybrid platform at the moment, so that exactly these spaces that aren't accessible now can be made accessible through 360-degree panorama platforms that can then be used as artistic stages. So we're learning all the time and we're communicating all the time. But I think it's very, very important to remember what Thomas Psyner said at the beginning, that there's not just a digital development, but also a digital divide. And I would expand that and say that there's also a question of digital responsibility. We're putting an awful lot of data into the net and we don't know what's happening with it. And we are very, very trusting of a huge open platform. It's difficult to find audiences. It's difficult to judge what content is valuable and what is less valuable, but it's also very, very important to create a kind of digital society where there's accountability and transparency for us as digital citizens. And yeah, just not to talk too long, the other thing that I found very interesting at the beginning that was also mentioned by Robert Bugrin and Stefan Berger was the question of where we're going, what's happened to the cultural scene. I think we've talked about a lot. We've also discussed some solutions and problems. And one of the questions was also future needs. And some of the European studies on the status of artists and the cultural sector have revealed the really basic fact that culture contributes an average of 4 to 6% of the European GDP. And if you see the level at which most creators and people involved in the cultural sector live, not just as far as income is concerned, but also precarious insurance, pension, education for their children. There's something that we need to solve at a regional, national, and European level. And I think that that's something that has become even more evident during the corona crisis. And I also welcome that the European Union and a lot of governments working exactly on that field. I think we're all of us who are here today are absolutely convinced of the necessity of art and culture and its value for society, and that is something we need to struggle to uphold. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I see Alina raising hand. And yeah.
So, hello, dober dan, buongiorno. My name is Alina Zeichen. I'm the head of IG KIK, Interessensgemeinschaft für Kulturinitiativen in Kärnten-Koroschka. It's an NGO or a network of cultural centers and cultural associations here in Carinthia and Koroschka. And so I'm representing very much the independent artistic and cultural scene. And I would like to thank all of all of the speakers for your words and your thoughts. And some of you are so much speaking out of my heart, because you said so much important things. It's like the precarious situation, especially for the independent artistic and cultural scene. And what we forget in digitalization or in this, we are improvising right now. And the scene is very creative, and we are able to find good solutions now for this crisis, but to have good solutions also for the future, we have to think about what all of this means. It also means that you need to get visibility in the digital world. You need to have the knowledge of which formats are possible. For the knowledge, you need the technique, you need the people. It's not, I'm not able just to do everything while I'm curating and also doing social media and also doing this and this and this, yeah? So this is a special, for this you need people who have the knowledge, because this is a job. It's not just something you do like nearby as a hobby. So you need also the techniques, you need the cameras, you need the microphones, you need the cutting system. You need to know how to do all of this. And for this, you need the fundings. And especially in the independent scene, you need the fundings to find good formats, because it's just, we need the time and to realize how this digital world is working for us. Because like theater or performance or dance, you cannot just put it in the internet. You have to make out of it a new format. You have to look on the theater play with a different point of view. And you have to redirect it. You cannot just cope it and put it there in this digital world. And it's also the audience. The audience is like, you have the different ages and you have the different perspectives of how they are viewing cultural events, but also the audience is, I think it feels a lack of these live performances. They are missing the artists. They are really just missing the community and have this social event of also meeting other people. And just to put it in the internet, it won't work for all of them. And of course, for the independent scene, it is now in the crisis more than before, but very evident to see how precarious the situation is. How hard it is if you're not working in an art institution of the Austrian Republic or of Kärnten-Koroschka. Hvala lepa, samo to smo hotela kratko povedati. I just wanted to say this very shortly. And thank you very much, hvala lepa again, for all of your thoughts.
Alina, thank you. Kinga wanted to contribute.
Yes, because I would love to share you a very good example, because otherwise I could only swear. So instead of swearing, I would love to tell you a very good story. At the moment, I'm in East Hungary, in Debrecen. This is Hungary's second biggest cultural city. And I think they found out a quite good resolution. This city is a beautiful cultural city, but it's super poor. And just like we talked about it, it's very, very difficult how to feed the artists. We artists, especially the artists who are freelancer, would love to share, would love to give the art, but how can we be good activists if we self are not fed? So if you are already in in a crisis, how can you be useful for the rest of your country or for the other people? So what happened in Debrecen? In Debrecen, there are a lot of economic problems, especially with the shops. In the pandemic situation, a lot of shops could not work later, so they went in bankrupt. And the cultural system found out that these empty shops could be or could function as galleries. So they made like an open call for the artists. Look, there is a not so much, but there's a small foundation for you, freelancer artists, if you would love to make exhibitions or cultural programs in the shop windows. And that's why I'm in Debrecen, because I always also made a program. This is the 4th month we are doing it. So we made exhibitions in the shop windows and also performances in the shop windows. And my project was with waste materials and also with rubbish, because I wanted to, as Ales also said, we are missing the personal contact, and I wanted to see these people in Debrecen. So I also made a call to the city that I need their rubbish, and otherwise we cannot talk to each other. But if they brought me like a small piece of rubbish, we could say to each other hello, they could place their piece of rubbish, we could get in contact, and then they were informed about it, that there will going to be a lot of cultural programs on the shop window. And after that we could make, there was a dance show with Buto dancers. There were a lot of literary programs there. We also organized alternative music concerts there, and it was all in the frames of my exhibition, because otherwise we could not work with the bureaucracy. And people came, and people were lively there, because of course they could not enter the space, but they could see everything through the shop windows. And we also made like a live streaming, so they could also see what's happening inside of the gallery and from the outside, because we had some loudspeakers and so on and so on. They could also enjoy the programs, or of course from home on the internet too. And this is not a big city with also not a big financial support, but it was like a medicine for the artists, for the people on the streets, actually for everybody. And it gives the power to be able to apply for other supporting and other financial help to make it as long as the pandemic stays. So this is one good thing I wanted to share with you, how to make physical connection in a microcosmos.
And still have a digital connection. You have an interactive live online connection with a project. Okay, we have IG Kultur. I don't know the name behind, but
Lydia. Yeah, thank you very much. Hello everyone, dobar dan, živijo. I'm Lydia Krinca-Radojević. I'm working for IG Kultur Steiermark. It's the same organization as Alina in Kärnten, Koroška, here in Steiermark, Steierska. I wanted just to follow the argumentation that Kinga put and Alina, because digital space that now overflowed all of us, we need to know that this is not a neutral space. It is very condemned. It's a space that is controlled by a big capital. Colleagues from music field that are already pre-corona was fighting very strong with appearance in digital space. Corona destroyed them. And the second thing is that something what digital space can never give to people is this social cultural component from culture. And this is not only for some events, it is work with the people, because as IG Kultur Steiermark, we have a lot of initiatives that are working in such a small towns as Kinga was now speaking about, that where exactly it's coming through this fusion between amateurism, professional culture, and it is creating, the effects are not only aesthetic, it is also this social effect, this social impact that is very strong and important for each community in all dimensions. It is about the participation, it's about democratic processes. It is something what we are all missing in this Corona time, and this is that we are all excluded from any kind of decision making. And this is something what we need also in post-Corona time, to learn again, to feel us as a part of some society or some community also. And this is something what it is very necessary, because these are very non-profit things. This is something what cannot live from itself, and this is something also what cannot happen without any financial support. We have structures that over the time was built through immense work from people, immense free work from people, unpaid work. This is now also through Corona was very damaged, and this needs right now, the politics is also called to put an emphasis on such a work, because also through Corona, if we are just following now are only events that are not possible, and somehow also is also this reduction of thinking about culture as an event and as only in this frame producing something for a public, but it's not only producing something for public, it is also something working with people, producing something that is much broader than just for a public. So much for me. Thank you very much. And thank you for all your contributions.
Vida, please.
Yes, maybe I would like to add something which goes a bit out of this reflection about the importance of the digital and so on, which we know that it is, and maybe from my or from our experience of Stazione Topolon, who since always avoided in a way digital communication and a too big presence on the internet. And also at the same time avoided advertisement. We don't do posters around the nearby cities. We really don't do a lot of this. And I think that somehow this also helps to build a kind of mystery or fascination, or maybe fascination for a place that maybe sound a bit kind of course far away and almost abandoned and so on and so on. So and now we are still in a way working like this, so we really don't have very organized or at all not Facebook page or other social media, and this also I think that this is also very clear when you come to the festival, because it reflects on the fact that also the division between the audience and the artists is really totally not visible. So also all this talk, which I imagine that is very important for very big institutions and organizations about the audience. When you come to this smaller festival, who can, of course, who has this opportunity of avoiding this division between what is audience, who is the artist, and of course we don't have, for example, anyone with a kind of staff t-shirt. It is not clear who is organizing what and who is there to see what, and the same, we don't have, of course, stages and so on, and I think that this also gives the perception of also to the people who came there for maybe the first time, visitors, to feel really, really included in this process, because you really don't feel that you are so different from an artist who is there near you to see the performance and then maybe do something. So yes, maybe it's interesting also to reflect on these topics in a kind of not so structured way, maybe also trying to understand them in a more flexible way. And I was also reflecting how, for example, our Robida group, who is a kind of young branch of Stazione Topolò, let's say, with our activity that we do throughout the year in Topolò and also somewhere else, how we in our way, because we are young, let's say, can include younger people, no? And for example, really speaking about very concrete things, but for example, we have a very strong, let's say, Instagram profile, and this is really the target, let's say, are young people of our age, while we don't almost use Facebook, which for the younger generation is already starting to become a kind of bit avoided social medium. So it's interesting also to understand how these things are really are complex, but are also very they should be natural in somehow, no? So also the content that you put on the digital platforms is not the same, should not be the same everywhere on each social media, and then again also maybe underlying that not everything should be shown, should be shared digitally, because we understand how important it is to be together in this place. Then, of course, we were very lucky that we moved the festival to September, where in Italy the situation with COVID was very, very, very relaxed, let's say. But it was at the same time quite funny, because we were living all together, the people here, artists, visitors, and then it was strange because from one time the program started and we should all wear the masks, but we were all together before, and yeah, so it's very strange in this situation where the life, the normal life, everyday life, and the art merges in a way. It's very difficult then to relate to all these kind of COVID restrictions and so on. But I imagine that this experience is very, very specific and could not be applied in this way to bigger institutions or cities and so on.
Okay, thank you, Vida. So time is limited, and we have about 15 minutes left. I would like to ask Aleš. Yes, I wanted to address you.
You had a question, because I had a comment, okay. If I may.
Yeah, please.
Yes. I feel very inspired by what was just said by Vida, Kinga, and the others. I mean, all these wonderful examples, how to resist, how to adapt, how to basically question the way we do things we think are absolutely necessary. On the other hand, I would like to go back to Zara, because I think twice she really stressed out the precariousness of this situation and of the new divides that are emerging and which are just a fact. We live economically, we live in an artificial world. We know that the way we live through the last year, it's not sustainable at all, basically. There is a huge bill that we will have to pay somehow. Now, we are all completely convinced that there is a necessity of arts and culture, and we live for this and we breathe for this, but quite many out there in our world are not of that same opinion. And when the time will come that we will have to pay this bill that we are building up now, we will have to, I think, invent a new narrative for the, I mean, why culture is really needed. Because for the cynics among us, this time just proves that culture actually isn't as much needed as we think that is, and that not so many museums are really needed and not so many cultural events are needed. Of course, we can say it's when we face the people and we see what's happening, I mean, at a cultural event, we really see that we all become alive. But to many also of the decision makers, I think this is nothing obvious. On the contrary. And I think it's just a question I would like to place in this round. I mean, how shall we together think about the necessity of art and culture in a future time? Because it's not that obvious, as I said, that this is being seen by decision makers as the necessity.
Yeah, Irina. And after that, we are going to start with the final remarks. And I would like to stress that this will be the last question as well. I'm going to ask, Aleš already mentioned, what do we demand from decision makers in the current crisis? Irina.
Yeah, I agree with Aleš. We have local elections now in Rijeka. 9 people are competing to become new mayor. They had an online confrontation recently about cultural policy. Maybe 2 among them understand the sector, understand the ecosystem of culture, arts, creativity. And yeah, it's important for them in terms of cultural tourism or things like that. But I think it's up to us, you know, even during COVID, what was the first thing that I would say everybody did? We reached for a good book, we reached for a good movie, we reached for some music, we reached for some kind of cultural content. And the arts and culture are really essential to our well-being, to our stories, our narratives, economically, in all different ways. I agree that we need to fight for this message to be pushed forward. I think that the sector needs to fight for it together. We need to fight for very concrete things like minimum wages for artists, schemes, pension schemes, you know, all this boring, you know, stuff behind creation, but that enables creation. We need to fight for budgets, you know. 1% of state budget of a European country for culture is nothing. You know, we need to fight at the European level for cultural budgets to be increased, and this is our role. You know, of all the people who work, especially cultural policy makers, those who write, who study policies, who are in advocacy. Yeah, I don't think that anybody else is going to do it for us. You know, I mean, yeah, if politician decides all of a sudden to shut down a theater in a city, I'm sure that majority of the citizens would say no. You know, you cannot do that, even if I don't go there. And you know, but we also, you know, so there are ways to think how to about new models, to think more about our audiences, what they want, how they are being engaged. Dialogue, education, extremely important for digital literacy, for understanding digital space. It's complex, but as I said, I think that it's our role as a sector to come up with models, to come up to test platforms, to propose tools, to fight for what the sector needs.
Sarah, what would you like to let policymakers know? What should they, how should they react?
Yeah, I'm afraid that Alice is very, very right, and that we will need a new narrative. I hope we don't need to justify, but to at least explain the value of arts and culture. And as someone who's like spent their entire cultural professional life fighting against notions like creative industries, I find it really hard.
Yeah, well, even Florida, you know, abandoned the terms.
Right.
I'm sorry.
And no. At a European level, you know, things are and have been and are moving in the right direction. And the Creative Europe program and the whole Horizon program has started to appreciate that art for the sake of art is a good thing, and culture has a value. And as I mentioned earlier, culture generates a lot of money, and that kind of gets ignored by politics to a certain extent. And at the same time, in Austria a few months ago, the Chancellor talked very disparagingly about the Kunstverliebten, these weird people who are in love with art, or Rishi Sunak in London suggested a few months ago that people working in the arts might want to educate themselves and get a better job. And that's the world we're confronted with. And that is what we need to combat. So I also agree, I need to kind of shift my lyrical paradigms from the argumentation of you know, cultural history and the intrinsic value of what we do, and the way that art holds up a mirror to the world and postulates new futures. And yeah, I agree, we need to find a way to actually do that, to postulate the very close future. Thank you.
Yeah, Kinga, what do you suggest?
I was thinking about exactly what you were talking about. I mean, I'm in Hungary. Should I talk about it more, about democracy and what about art and financial and whatever? So in Hungary, it can happen with a good friend of both of us, Aleš, another Tóth, a wonderful writer, Kristina Tóth, who dared to criticize some role models in very, very old books. She was harassed. She was harassed because of she raised her voice about a literary topic. So if these kind of things can happen, if you say something about your job, that you got harassment and brutal comments and whatever's, then how can we talk about democracy and supporting art, especially in this wonderful country? But where is the hope? I think it's we cannot forget the fact that culture and education are actually like twins. Most of us are teaching somewhere, most of the artists are teaching, and we are teaching the children of the politicians. and they have to face with this fact one time. So in the end, we are all humans, or I'm still too optimistic. But when this sector is going to face with this, that we are building the future, shall we really talk about this so loud? So I find it so ridiculous that we have to stress these facts, that we are helping the future, we are building the future with the young generation. Yeah, here is one of the biggest surprises, that people who are leading whole countries and economical and financial systems are somehow blind, even when they are already bound with the family in the education, because they have also children, because they are still human beings somewhere, somehow. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Kinga. Vida, what would you demand from politicians?
This is a very difficult question, of course, and I'm listening to all the others' answers very interested. No, what I would like to maybe underline is the necessity also to have a presence of art and culture, but in a really contemporary way, also in not urban places. And I think this has a really crucial role in also in politics in general. Also, if we think again about the elections of Trump and how all the countryside basically voted for him. So I think that really our focus, or the focus of politics and also probably of Europe, should go not anymore in urban contexts where in a way art finds its way of living and existing, but also in non-urban contexts. And this, for example, for me is very problematic in Slovenia, where I studied, but maybe also in other countries. I don't know how in Hungary is. Maybe in Italy is a bit better the situation, because Italy is big, so it's not, everything is not centralized in some main cities. But maybe this would be my remark or my highlight. To focus more on a contemporary gaze and content, and content especially, not only in urban environments.
Mm-hmm. So thank you very much. It's now 3 minutes or 2 minutes before 12 o'clock. I think really many aspects were brought up, and really interesting discussion about digitization, about wages, about internationalization, about cooperation, participation, countryside and urban regions. Sandra?
I want to say something. Thanks to all the participants, to all the panelists. It was really nice that you have time and give your inputs to this to our conference. Thank you for all your inputs, also for our, as you know, we want to make a white paper. David will be to make a conclusion of this. It was very impressive, and that's really, this part of conference, one of the reasons why I love my job as I do it, because so many nice and wonderful people and artists from different parts from our regions, from Europe, from the whole world, I hope, will be part of it. And thank you very much. And I think we have to discuss these points further, also with the two ladies from Styria and also from Klagenfurt, from the IG, because they have important inputs for all of our different sense in the fields of art and culture. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be with you this day. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sandra. I may announce the next event in the framework of this project. It will be on Wednesday, May 5th, and the topic will be civic protection. So whoever's interested is invited to join this as well. Yeah, have a nice day, and thank you. Bye bye, everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks to all.
Bye.